Welcome back. This is Brian, licensed massage therapist at Ross's Spa in Ithaca, New York. We're going to be talking today about self-massage techniques that you can use for the upper back and neck. This is another really common area of tension and pain for a lot of people, mostly because so many of us sit down for large portions of the day, whether we work at the desk or are driving in our cars or things like that. The muscles and joints in those areas are working really, really hard to keep us upright. So the first area we're going to be talking about is the area between the shoulder blades. We're talking about the spot between the inside edge of the shoulder blade and the spine. There's a couple different muscles that live in that area. The major players there are the rhomboids and the middle traps. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our lacrosse ball and we're going to put it between the spot that we want to work on and the wall. So I'll show you this way first. I just put it behind me like that, and then I'll roll it until I find a spot that I want to work on. Taking care to roll both back and forth horizontally and up and down, attacking different angles of that muscle tissue until I find a spot that feels particularly tender. And I want to hang out there for a couple minutes. I'll show you on this wall now, so you might get the ability to see it from a better angle. So you can see the ball is behind me there. And I'm just going to adjust it with my hand until I find a spot that feels good. And you can do a little bit, so what I'm doing on this other side is I'm moving my shoulder up and down like this, and that is really giving me a nice massage across the inside edge of the shoulder blade. Just be careful when you're working in a situation like this where you're close to an edge. I've had the ball shoot out from behind me a lot of different times, and it's not dangerous, but it just makes a really loud noise. So once you've worked in that area, another great area to work in is along the tops of the traps here. And it can be really hard to get into that area if you've got the ball behind you on the wall like this. So just by simply changing your angle, you can get into that area really well. So we're going to find a corner in a wall or a door frame, putting the ball about chest or shoulder height, and we're going to lean into it with this top aspect of the traps here, like so. And then same concept as all of the other techniques. Rolling around, find a spot that feels particularly tender. It can get quite intense with the level of pressure in this area. So really be mindful of how much body weight you're pushing in. There's a lot of neck muscles and shoulder muscles that can get really, really tight, and sometimes they don't like really intense pressure. So be mindful of how much pressure you're putting through there. And also be mindful of how your back is feeling in this position. For some people who have back issues already, leaning forward in this hinged forward position can do a little bit more harm than good. So certainly give it a shot, and if you're finding that you're tightening up through here, either spend less time doing this variation or maybe skip it in favor of spending the time doing some other things. One thing I forgot to mention with using the lacrosse ball between your shoulder blades here is you can also use it on the floor. And that just gives a little bit more pressure through the area. You're able to lay a little bit more of your body weight on the ball. But it's the same concept, just on the floor instead of on the wall. Next, we're going to break out our double lacrosse ball. We're going to work in an area along the back of the neck and head called the occiput. It's basically where the top of the neck meets the bottom of the skull. Especially for people who have headaches, this can be a really, really good area to work in. And I like using the double lacrosse ball because it gives me a little bit more stability as I'm working through that area. So I'm just gonna place it. You'll find that there are two kind of bony spots right along that area. And I like to start right there because there are some very small but very tense muscles that attach right there. And this tends to be a spot for me that likes a little bit more stillness as opposed to moving back and forth across it. Though you can certainly do that if it feels good, and I'm just using my legs to create that motion. And sometimes I'll take my hands and put it along the back of my head just to add a little bit more stability as I'm working through the area. And this is a great jumping off point for if you want to use this double lacrosse ball to work your entire neck. And even if you want to work it all the way down your back. It's really fantastic for going all the way up and down the length of your spine. And the last thing we'll show is some neck stretches. So these stretches are going to take advantage of the fact that the neck is connected to the shoulder here. So what we're going to do first is the side that we want to work on, we're going to put our arm out at a 45-degree angle between here and the floor. And the main thing to start off with is really pushing that shoulder down. And what I'm doing with this arm is I'm not just holding it here. I'm trying to push my fingers out toward the floor without moving this center axis of my body. So I'm doing I'm exaggerating a little bit here so you can see. I'm moving my arm out like that. And what I'm already feeling is a nice stretch along this aspect of my arm. And we're going to intensify that by simply keeping our chin tucked and moving our neck this way. So we're taking advantage of the fact that the joints in this area all work together and that many of the muscles are connected. They share the same connective tissue. And then what I like to do is I like to take my hand, put it into a fist, and go downward like that. And then opening up and going upward, which again, getting a really nice stretch through the neck and all the way across the front of the shoulder here, which can be really nice for those of us who work at desks or drive a lot. And then you can even, if you feel like your neck needs more work, just a little bit of gentle pressure through here with this hand. You don't want to do anything that's going to push you into pain. But explore different angles here and see if there are any spots. Obviously keeping our shoulder pulled down to make sure we get a nice stretch through this area. And even taking some really nice deep breaths. Those neck muscles that connect to the top of the ribs there will then stretch even further when you take those nice deep breaths. And then just releasing and working on the other side. Thanks again for joining us for self-massage techniques for the upper back and neck. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment in the videos below, and I'll try to address those in future videos. Follow us on YouTube and Instagram, and we'll see you next week when we talk about techniques for the shoulders and